Dark, I think we'll start with you, right? What have you prepared for us today?
Today I am covering what is the Japanese name? What is this? Shiro Seijo to Kurubokushi, which
Kurubokushi.
is which the English title is Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence, because the hard translation is White Saint and Black Pastor, but it's like
Uh-huh.
doesn't really work in English.
What is name one black pastor?
What?
Eh,
I don't think it works out like that quite. But
Would you? I mean, there's one answer, but I don't think he's actually
There's only
black.
one
So
answer. There's only one black pastor.
in
is he
all
though?
of the world.
Isn't he Italian?
What are you
What?
talking about?
What are you
You
talking
know who I'm
about?
Oh,
talking
you're talking
about?
about Father Pucci?
Yeah, isn't he Italian? He doesn't count, does he?
Yeah, he's
I don't
Italian,
know.
dude.
Yeah,
I don't
so he's
know.
POC is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's true.
Because he's Italian.
Anyways, this is a manga original? What is this?
This
Manga
is
original by
a
Dogokobo. Oh, this
yeah, this
is
is
the Dogokobo series. I keep
Dogakobo's.
forgetting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you can see it the moment you look at it. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, you can see
four-koma
it in the
manga.
visuals actually.
It's a four-koma manga. It's a comedy fantasy romance series. Pretty lightish on the fantasy right now. Like, it's not like super
What do you
high
mean by that?
fantasy. So it's not like
Oh,
I mean it's
like
not
there's
like
not
there's
a
like
lot of like
goblins running around and
supernatural
shit and
stuff.
like orcs or
Yeah,
like
okay.
real like a ton of magics going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll just read the synopsis for now and then I'll fill in whatever the hell they miss. Yeah, dwelling in the small outskirts of a peaceful town, Lawrence works as a local pastor for the townsfolk. When in need, he is responsible for guiding people to the church to visit the saint, a symbol of good morals, who heeds each parishioner's struggles and grants them sincere advice. Cecilia, a kind young girl, is tasked to fill this role. However, this tiresome job quickly exhausts her. That, paired with her hidden somnolent nature, often causes her to laze around the church. This leaves Lawrence to care for the church all by himself, while Cecilia sleeps in anticipation for her next visitor. Yeah, so I'll just like skip the rest of that. So essentially like that's kind of like an opening bit. That's not really like something that they do
Oh,
too
okay.
much. Like it is a bit of her like lazing around, but they don't really focus on that much after episode 1. They
Mm-hmm.
do focus on her being more of like a klutz who's kind of only really there for whose real like competence comes in like advice and performing like miracles, though they haven't really
Right.
shown the miracles just yet of like what that entails. But that's where like the fantasy and magic comes in for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I'm trying to think of what else. So yeah, a lot of the romance comes from Lawrence and her kind of like bouncing off each other, but them both being what would you call it? Well, she's sort of uh oblivious to certain scenarios, but she's more so the pursuant, I guess you could say, in this.
What do
And
you mean by
he's like
that?
like she is more readily like wants some sort of romantic development, right?
Oh, okay,
Whereas he is just entirely oblivious. But both of them are like oblivious to any sort of to a lot of like scenarios that they sometimes put themselves in. So there is that. Um but he
So
is
is
like
the focus
the
on
full on.
so is the focus on Saint Cecilia doing like getting into silly situations, or is the focus mainly on uh Lawrence getting along with Cecilia? Is that like sort of the focus of the episodes?
So right as of right now a lot of it has been more so them doing their sort of daily tasks and then while doing that um getting into minor romance scenarios, getting into minor
Oh, okay,
comedic
okay, okay,
scenarios.
okay.
A lot of like a general cute girl shit with Cecilia.
Uh-huh.
A lot of it being like reactions, things like that.
Right,
A
right,
lot of
right, right,
Lawrence's
right.
comedy comes in with him being like super overly protective and overly at the ready or overly doting
Mhm.
towards her. And yeah, and then you have a supporting cast come in of a couple of other characters, like another pastor come in, Abel, and he's more so of the wingman type, the trying to like blow off work, like he's coming in from another chapel, like way like in the city, um, and he's just coming there to like blow off work essentially. And then there is I forget how you say her name, Hasalita Aldridge, who comes in as the supporting like heroine role to Cecilia, and she's kind of like paired up with Abel.
Yeah,
Uh,
Aldridge Hazelita is it,
yeah,
what is
Hasalita.
that eye doing there? What
I don't know, dude.
what is that eye doing there? Yeah, wait.
But
Hey, yeah, Hazelita Aldridge. Jesus. Christ.
yeah,
Wait.
so you got a lot of your standard scenarios with Cecilia. You have Lawrence obviously doting on her. You have her going to a clothing store and everyone at the store thinking that she's very cute. So there's like a montage of her trying on different outfits. And then,
Mhm.
obviously that leads into her trying to get Lawrence to like notice the outfit, which he like reluctantly sort of comments on because it's so embarrassing. So that's kind of like the scenarios you're working with here. Overall, it's very
Right.
cozy. This takes place in a medieval-ish, not really. I would. This takes place in a Gochusa type Western town that doesn't make much sense, and you can't tell what time period it takes place in.
There are supernatural powers, right? Or no?
So there are. So the saints are mortal, more or less. But they do have certain supernatural powers that they don't particularly explain, or they haven't explained just yet, or haven't really gone
Okay,
over
okay.
like what that super entails. They Cecilia is able to call on like angel sprites that no one else can see in the church. So there
Hmm.
is that. Trying to think of what else she does in particular, because there is another bit with like an older saint who is kind of like pushed to her limit. But they don't
Hmm.
particularly describe what that entails, right? Because usually it's just people
Okay.
coming for advice, not really coming for a genuine like miracle to be performed or
Right.
something like that. At
Right.
least not yet. But the implication is that in doing that, that does like kind of sap them of energy.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm sure we'll see more of that. I'm sure there will be some sort of like dramatic I guess like
What's
dramatic
how much
occurrence with
I know
that.
obviously that's not
That makes sense.
I know that's not the majority of the story, but how much of the screen time obviously precise numbers not needed. How much of the screen time is dedicated to that sort of uh background setting that's setting up for the later dramatic development compared to the episodic sort of rom-com kind of going on?
Compared to not much at all.
Okay.
So
So like an 80-20 kind of vibe here.
yeah, there's like one episode that like kind of drops a lot more, and I think that was like
Hmm.
episode 3, if I'm not mistaken. That does a lot more backstory, a lot more about the Saints, kind of to set up and bleed in Hasalita's role as she's coming in.
Hmm.
It's sort of like where her and Abel fit in the world, and sort of like how Lawrence's relationship with Cecilia is like slightly different than a lot of the more like exploited uh lady saints are, right? Because you
Mhm.
know, no, like they basically set it up to be like, you know, they can work them to death should they want to.
Right.
And again, they establish that it is the case that they are basically
It
just
reminds me of
normal.
in this kind of reminds me of the setup at least. Near when you were talking about the giant beast of ours, right? Like and the pairing or whatever that they had,
Yeah.
isn't it kind of similar to that in a sense? Um,
Um, sort of, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like uh I guess in this case the lore, I mean the lore is still somewhat important, but it's kind of sidetracked by the main bread and butter, which is the rom-com. But that's sort of how I'm seeing things. The
Yeah.
whole like, oh, you can't run them too dry or whatever. It's like you guys are partners, but it's like you can't do whatever you want with like the girl essentially. But
Yeah.
how much, so in between, like across episodes, how much overall development is shown, or how much relationship development is shown between the two main characters?
There's really not a lot of development between them so far. It's just kind of like a lot of us kind of seeing them in action, I guess at this point you could say. So
Oh,
there's
okay,
not a
okay.
ton of like actual, you know, oh, these are like these characters are, you know, their relationship is changing. It's
Hmm.
kind of more so that we see more glimpses into that relationship more than anything, right?
Hmm.
Which is not really like terrible. I do want to see more, obviously, at some point. I do hope that we do get development. There's been like some slight developments in the sense of, you know, we get to see her a little bit more pursuant of Lawrence in like the clothing scenario, and him sort of needing to react a bit more and sort of like push himself a bit more or be egged
Hmm.
on by like the other parts of the cast. So there's that aspect of it, but as far as like a shot through like a romance story, I don't really know how far this is going to go, to be honest. I don't really think we're going to end anywhere like super super significant, because this is like, you know, this is a 4 coma. um and not for nothing, also a series being done by Doga Kobo, so you know, I feel like that does kind of come with the expectations that we might be spinning our wheels a little bit. I hope not too much, but yeah, that does seem to
So
be what's
is the
happening.
problem, is the major problem that there's no development and it's kind of starting to do the same stuff again, or is the problem like it kind of wants to get on with a lore, but then it keeps doing the episodic stuff?
I mean, I don't think it's really. I
Let
don't
me.
think there are really problems at all. It's more so just that like it's just a not. It's not a very like unique series. It's also not a very like.
Ah, okay, okay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not like, you know, it's not terribly unique. It's not terribly like, what would you say? You know, it's not like pushing any boundaries. You know, pretty standard
Right.
stuff, more or less. It is pretty interesting.
How?
I would say it's also not like bad in any way, shape, or form
Right. It seems pretty
in that
innocuous for the
regard.
most part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun enough. It gets the job done. It is enjoyable, but you know, it could have been a little bit better.
Hmm. What do you think
The
of the audio visuals, including
So
PED stuff?
yeah. So there are two things. One, Cecilia's voice actor is Hime Sawada, which appears to be a newcomer. Now, at
Yeah,
first,
this
did
is
not
this is like completely
I
new. Yeah.
genuinely didn't realize she was a newcomer because I can't place who I think she sounds extremely like, but she is filling this role exceptionally well for a newcomer, right? Like the fact
Oh,
that
okay.
I thought that this was like someone I've heard, a million times being like
Right, right,
casted as
right.
this sort of semi airhead cutesy character. Obviously there's something to be said about someone bringing a more unique voice, but I think as far as like a first role goes, at least listed on Mall right now, she might have done games or
Mhm.
something. Who knows? I'll have to look at that later. But as far as like a first role for an anime, being a main, being this type of character, and nailing it to the point where like best case scenario would be she sounds fitting and she's like kind of pushing it really hard and like with a more unique voice. Um, but I think that this is like kind of the second best you could ask for. It's like, killing it in a almost typecast like type way where you feel like someone who
Right,
would
right.
be typecast as this character. Like
Well, and
that's how much
also
you're
like
nailing it.
being if you have experience in these roles and you sound good and you get into sort of how you get into the heads of future sound directors, future directors for other series, right? Or like you become that voice where people are like, oh, like this sort of voice is like a standard voice, so we can hire them or whatever it is. Or
Yeah.
you're able to do that voice for auditions, that more like common voice for auditions. Then it becomes pretty good because obviously you have people like Uesaka Sumire again or some Ogura Yui who have such distinct voices and people pick them for their voices. Obviously, the most infamous one is Kana Hanazawa, right? Hanazawa Kana.
Never heard of
Uh,
her.
yeah, completely unknown. But even
Have you heard of her?
those voice actresses
No.
ultimately had to cultivate. I say cultivate, but obviously they could have
Cultivate.
probably done
Or
it
have you been
from the
reading my
start.
Chinese manhwas?
Sorry, wrong usage of wrong word usage, but uh, even those voice actresses had to ultimately adapt a more normal tone to enable to get more of those roles. You know what I mean? Like, um,
Right.
especially recent times, Ogura Yui, she's had to do a very normal like One-san or like normal girl role, and uh she hasn't been getting as many roles where she's doing her super high falsetto-ish voice. So I think it's
Yeah.
perfectly good,
So
and obviously we'll get her more roles in the future, probably.
yeah, so I think the cool thing, though also Hasalita, her VA is Kana Nakamura. She's not like a strict newcomer as with
Hmm.
Sawada but she is also, she was in was it Sorademo Ayumu Yosatekeru, which is
Hmm.
that was that like shogi one from the
Oh
Takagi
yeah, the Aimu-san. Yeah,
person.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so she was the main in that. She's top road
Oh,
in
okay.
the Uma Musume ONAs. And now she's
Hmm.
doing this, and she was another character. So this is only her third role total, right?
Yeah,
She's also doing a very
she seems relatively
very good
flexible
job.
though. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, she's
yeah, she
definitely
seems. Re-
she's shown now that she's pretty flexible, and she can do a lot. So I think that that's
Mhm.
good. I think the big thing too is the fact that both of them are playing very well and essentially showing that they're just as strong of like VAs as someone like Kaito Ishikawa, who is playing Lawrence,
Right, right.
or Haruki Ishii, who's playing Abel. It's like for the two of them to be able to be paired up with like such prominent VAs and sound of the exact same par is like I don't know. I mean, like you couldn't really ask, I guess, like for a
Very good.
better first showing, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
because like you hear these people and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like naturally, like these must be massive, um, these must be massive female voice actors. Like,
Right,
and you look at their
veterans.
roles, and it's like, nope, like, nope, they
Nope,
are
three
new.
people. Yeah,
They are.
yeah,
It's
three
like,
roles.
yeah. Now you say to yourself, like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be hearing a lot more of these people. So
Definitely.
that's been pretty cool. As far as the visuals go now, well, actually, I guess like music and stuff, standard, fine, good. You know, Dogakobo puts out fitting music. You know, it's nothing's been stand out. You know, but it
Hmm.
sets the scene. It fits the scene. You won't remember it, but you know, it's good.
That'll work. Yeah, it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not taking you out of the scene. So I
What
think
about
that's
the
fine
OPED?
for series like this. So OPED is cozy. I feel like the ED audio quality for some reason sounds like kind of blown the fuck out at certain points, which is like weird.
Unfortunate.
Um, the the OP is good music wise, visually kind of weird because they do a city pan through and it does not look right. The CG in it is very like you can very much tell that these are like I guess you could describe it as like paper doll or like paper cutouts on the like 3D backgrounds that it's zooming through. Like they didn't put in the legwork to pull off what they tried to do with this
Hmm.
OP shot, unfortunately. Um, but there are the after that the OP's visuals are fine, and there is like some pretty visually nice scenes in there. In the show itself, pretty standard audio visuals, good because it's Tokugawa, so like you know it's solid. A
Hmm.
lot of really cute transition, like style transitions, which always nice. Again, Tokugawa, like kind of
Hmm.
what you expect. I think the more well, it's not really standout, but especially for Doga Kobo, it's not really well for Doga Kobo. It's not really standout. I feel like. However, the backgrounds and stuff are pretty nice. The way that they seem almost like watercolor painted, especially with a lot of the
Hmm.
lines. They don't clash with the characters too much or with anything in motion, but they have a lot of nice colors to them. Especially interiors
Hmm.
too are have a lot of colors that pop too that they choose, which I think is pretty cool. It gives it a lot gives it a pretty like unique feeling to it. I
Okay.
would compare it again. I would compare a lot of the palettes for the exterior stuff and some of the interior stuff to be of like that same Western Gochiusa type, like weird Western town. It's almost like a Western like fantasy-ish, but not really like Venice type thing, but not really. It's a very weird fusion. I'd have to see. I'm not an architecture guy, you know,
I
so
think the issue
I
is, or
can't
not an
place it very
issue, but
much.
it's yeah, but it's they kind of just have a general mm, like I think these artists all have a general like pamphlet, or like they're not going out and googling, it's more just like general renaissance kind of medieval ish, and then you start mixing it with like maybe sometimes like gothic stuff, but they I don't think they have a specific theme that they're following oftentimes when they're doing, western building kind of stuff like this, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
So yeah, it's that's been interesting. Yeah, I'd have to look more into that too to see if there is like a building style going on here that I could actually like fully name. But
Hmm.
yeah, other than that, like I said, the line work and the actual colors and everything, the way they're painted, looks cool. Looks very nice. Not again, not the most standout stuff you'll ever see, but very, very crisp.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I
Pretty
think
good, pretty good.
overall, no complaints. Nothing really to say as far as like directing and the director goes. You know, he's done some episode directing for some other Dogakobo series. He's done some episode directing, like full episodes of like Tadakun from a while ago. He's done some stuff for Uchi Maid. He's done some stuff for Senpai Uzai. Uh, yeah, so this is, I believe, this is the director's first main, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
so it's like, did he? So
Yeah.
he
Okay. This
he
is the
had
yeah.
previous works with Dogakobo, but it's his first main. Is
Yeah,
that what
this is
you're
his
saying?
first main. Yeah, he's done a couple of things here and there for them.
Okay, okay.
So
So they're kind of growing him in a house a little bit.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
So that's been very interesting to see. And yeah, not a whole lot else. It's definitely not something I would recommend for people who are just like looking for a more original series.
People who kind of like Dogakobo animation style,
Yeah, if
and
you
they're
like a
kind of looking
Dogakobo
for like what they've
series,
done.
if you want, if you
Yeah.
want to see something that kind of like fits that mold, if you want to just have like a chill watch, a chill time,
Hmm.
something that you know is going to be cozy, then I think that this will work perfectly for you.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I said, if you're looking for something a little bit more like cutting edge or something like that, then this is not going to be the show for you, really. Which is a
Yeah.
bit unfortunate, but I mean, it's a Dogakobo series, so that's kind of a
Yeah, but
given
it's a
at this
Dogakobo
point. Like,
series. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and
But
yeah,
yeah,
I think that's
thank you very much.
about it. A little, only real like, only real strange thing that I'll never get over in realistically like any anime at this point will probably be just seeing anyone in like a Catholic priest like pastor outfit with the cross hanging down, just because like between rail decks and like fate, I'm like, oh, you're a villain. Like,
Right.
it's like you're not, you're definitely a villain, and it's like, no, not really, but that's
It's
just
not how
a
that works. Yeah.
yeah, that's just a completely different story altogether.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you, Dark, for helping to cover this series. I was pretty interested in
Yeah.
it too, and I do
Mall
want to check it out a
mall
little bit
rating,
afterwards.
right middle of the road mall rating here, 7 out of 10. Just right down the
Yeah,
middle.
completely average. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
right down the middle, absolutely average, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. What was the actual Mal rating for this? I'm actually pretty
I think the
curious.
actual mall rating
Um,
is like actually a 7.2 or something. Yeah,
okay.
7.3,
Interesting.
7.33.
Wow, okay, good guess, good guess.
Which I guess is like, it's fitting. It's like a 7.3 fitting fucking,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
mouse score that doesn't make you want to barf,
mile score. Yeah, like
essentially.
it makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
Okay.
there is an argument to be made that that probably is like a median score or whatever. So there is that.
All right. So thank you, Dark, then for helping to cover Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence. This is a manga original. Japanese name is Shiroseijo to Kurobokshi. I believe the abbreviation, the actual is Shiroseijo, so you can search. You can abbreviate like that as well. Pretty standard, run of the mill, do a Kobo. And so if you like that stuff, please do check it out. Again, thank you very much, Dark.